Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with me today. This is Catherine Daniels with Retreat to Peace. I am inviting you to share this hour with me with a special guest that is going to talk about a very intimate journey with a medical condition that he was diagnosed with and how it changed his life. I know there's a lot of people in our audience that may have had a medical condition, or maybe they're even dealing with a medical condition right now where they're experiencing chronic illness or other types of symptoms and those kinds of things. Today, I invite you to ask yourself if you could be a superhero, who would you be? The reason I present this question to you is because most of the time we are presented with superheroes, but we're not always sure who it is that we should be. We show up with our capes, and maybe it is that we're a superhero to our children, or maybe we're a superhero to ourselves, but we're just not sure what that looks like. So, if you were to grab your cape and rise up into the sky and beat the super villain, what would that feel like? And what would that look like? But what if you've already done that? There's a lot going on in the world right now, and it really doesn't matter, where you are as far as what you're doing and how things are. It really matters around what your mindset is, and are you turning your mindset into a place that it is going to bring positivity into your life? Are you bringing positivity into your world and to the people around you? Our guest talks about this medical diagnosis that literally turned his life around and changed his outlook on how he was living life. Now, in my interview, there's points in time where I get a little uncomfortable because of some of the information he shares. But the message behind what he shares is so powerful. It's not often or every day that you meet someone who has been diagnosed with something as profound as Chris has been. And it's interesting to hear the journey that Chris has been on and literally learn about how his life transformed. I think a lot of times our life transformation happens when we're in our darkest hour. I know for me, a lot of my darkest hours have provided me steps on a rung of a ladder or a staircase that was propelling me into a direction that I didn't even know. And when I used to cry out and ask, why is this happening to me? I just started to recognize that it really wasn't about the why, it was more about the thank you. Thank you for providing this opportunity to me to experience life in a different way and to experience a whole new set of circumstances that I would have not had otherwise. And a lot of times, just that level of gratitude would be enough to shift the space that I was in and see things in a different light. One of the things that I implemented early on in my life was to really implement this idea of just having appreciation for my day. So before I even got out of bed in the morning, and I still do this today, is I literally, before I open my eyes, I literally just say thank you. And I think my thoughts around thank you for allowing me to have this day. Thank you for giving me the gift of this day. There are so many times that I have talked to people in my journey where they have shared some really deep things that they have gone through. And I'll just give you an example of a mother who was going through something with their child. And most often, when I would hear their experience is very real to what they are going through at the time. And the suffering is very real to what they're going through at the time. But more often than not, the other side of what is happening is that there are other people in the world where their suffering may be far greater. And that's not to minimize any suffering of any kind. If anything, it is an allowance of understanding that the space that we're in can always be worse. Not that we want that, we don't want that. But somewhere in the world, right now, in this moment, someone has been diagnosed with cancer. Somewhere in the world, right now, in this moment, someone has learned of a passing of a loved one. So I invite you to just take a moment and just really live in a space of gratitude, in a space of being thankful for all the people in your life, for all the blessings that you have, for all the abundance that you have been served, and have that appreciation on such a deep level that you radiate that back into the world. I know right now the world is heavy. I know right now the things that are going on just feel unsurmountable. Earlier, I was having a conversation with my daughter, and she was just sharing with me some of the disappointments that she has had with trying to find her way with different things that she's going through. And as we were talking, it was interesting because it wasn't just her, it's people all around the world that are going through similar trials. And gently, I had to point out all of the blessings. There are so many blessings. Try to look for those blessings in your day to day walk. Just yesterday, I was driving down the road and I recognized in the sky there was this beautiful bald eagle that was flying above me. Now, anyone who knows me, they'll say, oh, of course, you picked it out of the sky because you always see the birds. But as much as that may be true, I love the fact that this beautiful bald eagle was flying above me. It reminds me that there is this majestic place on earth, and we don't even have any idea of what that really means or what it looks like, but it's so profound. The bald eagle represents such strength. It represents such strength within itself, how it flies, how it soars, how it just moves majestically above us. For that moment, I just watched the eagle fly, and I just thought to myself, I need to keep this in my memory because I need to remind myself of this moment when I may not be feeling my strongest. It is something to look up to, kind of like the superheroes that people look up to. If you had a cape, what color would your cape be? What is the color that you connect with? And why? Why do you connect with that color? Does it remind you of something? Does it give you energy? Does it make you feel powerful and build you up? What is the color of your cape? I ask you if you had music that would go with your superhero theme song, what would your music be like? Would it be upbeat? Would it be fun? Would it be happy? Or would it be really powerful, really strong? Would it make people step back? What would your music be like? The superhero in your story is you. You have been designed to create the story that you want to live. If you're not living your best life, look around you and ask, Is the story that you wanted for you, is it being created within you, or is it being created outside of you? If you're looking for things that are outside of you, it's going to be harder to find that, because true happiness, your true strength, all comes from within you. So look for your inner strength. I work with a lot of people that have trouble going inward. And I ask, why do you have that kind of trouble to go inward? Is it because you've been congested with other information that you've lost your way to go inward? If that is the case, I invite you for a moment to just close your eyes and think on the thought of what it is that you feel in your body. Where in your body do you feel like you have protection around a space within you that you can't access? Ask that part of you just to try to relax and give yourself the ability to go inward with self-love and help your inner child heal, if that's what it is that needs to be done. I invite you to think on what it is that you need for yourself, what it is that you need for your true self, authentic self, to be happy. Is it within you, or is it outside of you? I know for a lot of people, they would say, you know what, if I had $1 million, I would have a completely different life. Maybe you would have a different life, but the fact of the matter is that you would still be with yourself. And if you're not happy within your own space with yourself, $1 million is not going to change a thing for you. For many people who are suffering right now, that are really struggling in the times that we're living in, do you know your toolbox for healing? So Retreat to Peace is a platform for helping the world to heal. But what that really translates into is that it is a space for each individual to come to learn tools that will help them grow and help them heal. Each one of us have been beautifully designed to have the power to do this for ourselves. But do you know how to tap into your toolbox yourself? Well, what is the toolbox? Do you know what your toolbox is? Because something that works for me may not work for someone else. And what works for someone else may not work for me. We have all been designed to heal ourselves in our own unique way. But with that said, that is why we need to understand what it is that works for ourselves. If you don't know what that is, I invite you to go to Retreat and learn how to find and tap into your own unique set of tools for your healing toolbox. As you pull on your superhero cape and you just get ready to soar into a space of gratitude and go out into the world with an abundance of joy that radiates from within, that shows outward. Moving on and becoming a different person that is no longer held by the chains of limiting cycles. Tap into yourself, and soar like the beautiful bald eagle in the sky. And know that you're majestic, and know that your flight is bigger than you can ever imagine. And with that, Today, I am excited to have a guest speaker who's going to share his personal journey, his personal story that has been filled with struggle and overcoming as he wears his cape and he references superheroes throughout his interview. Chris is literally a miracle in the sense of overcoming something that really could have taken him down in such a profound way. Mindset is so powerful in everything that we do. And during this time of living in a global pandemic, and as things are evolving and changing, please keep tabs on your friends and your neighbors, and most importantly, your family. Stay connected. Stay connected with everyone that you can and help them rise to the space that you're in with your superhero cape. Help them to see that the world does not have to feel so heavy. Help them live in their authentic heart space. Help them to see that they too can have what you have. And invite them to be in a space where they too are retreating to a place of peace. This is a gift that is being offered to the world. The more that people heal, the greater the vibration will be around the world. If you are not aware, you can pray on anyone, anywhere in the world, and that will radiate its energy to that person. Use your power that you have, your superpower, to help yourself, to help your family, to help the world, and live in a space of peace. Thank you for being here, and I'm just so filled with gratitude and cannot thank you enough. With that said, let's dive into my interview with Chris. Hey you, wherever you are in the world right now, thank you so much for being here with me. We know that we're living in some volatile times, and we know that the world is changing. So let's create a bridge as we travel through one another's countries, just coming together as one people, finding our home in one world. And that's why this signature talk today, the attitude of gratitude, is so important. So settle in as we jump right in. Today, I'm very excited to welcome my guest speaker, Chris D.T. Gordon. How are you, Chris?
I'm very well, Catherine. Thanks for having me here. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's summertime and it's, fleeting. So we're going to embrace all that we can in these moments. I love this title, Attitude of Gratitude. And I know you have an incredibly powerful story. So rather than me introducing you, I would really love for you to introduce yourself to our audience and help them gain a little perspective about who you are.
Certainly. Well, I am a faithful husband and father of three who lives in New Ulm, Minnesota, which is about 100 miles southwest of the Twin Cities. My wife, Becky, and I are both teachers. She teaches in the high school here in New Ulm. I teach online. I teach special education online for an actual online school. And my kids are Josh, who's 11, and twins Seth and Anna, who are 8 years old. And my story of the attitude of gratitude starts 5 years ago, in March 2015. On March 14th, Pi Day for us math nerds, there was a Pi Day race near my town. And I'm a runner, and so I participated. And I ended up running the 3.14-mile race in 19 minutes, 29 seconds. And I know it sounds like I'm just bragging right off the bat, but there's a reason why I'm laying the groundwork here. 4 days later, I was helping Becky load the kids up into the van to go off to school and daycare, respectively. And as I was flying Seth around the backyard to get into the van, I veered too far to the right as I was flying him, and I scraped the back of my right hand on our garage wall. And I've had scrapes before. I didn't think anything of it. So I put him in the car seat. I kissed everyone goodbye. And as they're driving down the road, I walk back to the house, clean my wound, and then I start my day teaching online. Well, 3 days later, I wake up and I have a lacrosse ball-sized bump on my right elbow. Now, that's not how I usually wake up. So I decided I should probably check this out. I drove myself to the walk-in clinic, and the doctor who saw me said that I might have bursitis and I should keep an eye on it. Well, throughout the day, I started becoming more lethargic. I started getting sick, and that bump was growing and growing until at the point when at about 8 o'clock, it was tripled. My right arm was triple the size of my left arm. To use a comic book analogy, I looked like the Incredible Hulk in mid-transformation. At this time, my wife and I decided I needed to go back into the hospital to the emergency room. So we procured a sitter for our 3 kids who are now sleeping at this time. We went to the emergency room. They admitted me right away. And as they were trying to get a blood pressure reading on me, they found out there was another problem beside my enlarged arm. I had gone septic. And sepsis, for those who don't know, is generally an over-exaggeration of the body to an infection. And it will send a toxic chemical into the bloodstream to kill the infection. However, it's an over-exaggeration, like I said. People die from sepsis. So it was very touch and go as to what was going to become the bigger issue. Well, they kept me overnight, and in the morning, the attending doctor at that time said that they could do nothing more for me. My problem was beyond them. And she asked me where I should go. Well, I immediately said the Mayo Clinic for 2 reasons. First of all, the Mayo Clinic is world renowned, and it's actually in Rochester, Minnesota, which is 2 hours east of New Ulm. Secondly, my in-laws live in Rochester. And actually, at that time, my father was a chaplain for the hospital. So I knew that we would be well connected, and my wife and kids would have a place to stay for the, I'm sure, 2 or 3 days that this would take to resolve. As you can tell, that was not the case. They flew me from New Ulm to Rochester, quickly admitted me, and soon diagnosed me with necrotizing fasciitis, which is also known as flesh-eating bacteria. It's as scary as it sounds. They quickly prepped me for surgery, and before they started in with the first surgery, the surgeon was talking to me. And I don't know if you are familiar with the movie True Lies.
I've not seen it, no.
Okay. Well, basically, there's a particular scene where the Arnold Schwarzenegger character has been drugged with a truth serum, and his attackers, his tormentors, are trying to get obviously the truth out of him. Well, he proceeds to tell them in slurred speech and with a listing head how he was going to kill them. That's basically how I felt talking to the doctor. I was very confident and very assured that I wanted to go through with this, but I obviously did not kill my surgeon. This, however, did throw him off a bit because he's more used to people being very scared, weepy, worrying about their lives. And I'm like, let's do this. All right, let's go. Basically like a drunken Professor Xavier. So they put me under for the first of several surgeries, and I was in this coma for 5 days. So from the middle of Sunday through Thursday night. And during my coma, they proceeded to basically fillet me, taking the skin from the back of my hand all the way up my arm, through my shoulder, to the base of my neck, to the I'm not sure if you can see that there, down my chest, around my rib cage, and up through the middle of my back. And then the infection had gone so far into my right arm that initially they thought that they would have to amputate, but during the second surgery. But during that surgery, the occupational therapist who was in attendance saw that I still had hand function. So what they did was they extracted a 15-inch by 4-inch or a 40 centimeter by 10 centimeter flap of skin from my left thigh, and they placed it on my right hand. And since it's my thigh on my hand, I call it my thand. So copyright pending. They also, but being a runner, my thighs are rather muscular, and they could not close the wound naturally. So they actually had to remove the vastus lateralis, which is the outer thigh quadricep muscle out of my left thigh. And then they installed knobs on either side of the wound and installed a Jacob's ladder, which is basically like fancy shoelaces, to tighten up the wound over time. And I have I would say almost a half meter or almost a foot and a half scar on my left thigh, which looks really cool, I have to say.
It sounds very painful.
Painkillers really helped for the first month and a half. But then to cover the areas that had been I guess exposed because of the removed flesh, because of the debridement when they removed the infected skin, they harvested skin grafts from my thighs and my back. And they basically used a souped up cheese grater on my skin and then took what they removed onto a plate, and then they kept that for later, and then they put what's a material called Integra on my infected areas, and then placed the skin grafts on top of that. So I now look like a discount Deadpool. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that character, but basically here I can show you a little bit of it there.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I can see that it's very bumpy, I guess you could say. Yeah. And also they had to take a nipple off. So every time I have my shirt off, it looks like my chest is winking. Night, hallucinating. I thought I was at the bottom of a water slide because I was throwing up CT fluid that they used for to get images of my body. And I was also under the influence of ketamine, which is a powerful painkiller, but also causes crazy hallucinations. I had never done hard drugs before, so I was not ready for this. But eventually I get more into my right mind. My brother, who lives in Michigan, flew out and had actually been there since Monday or Tuesday. He arrived well before I had come out of the coma. my wife and my father-in-law all came up to the hospital Thursday night to talk to me and get an idea of where I was at. And then I started my recovery. And it was within that first couple days that Becky had told me how much people have rallied behind us. We had family and friends coming to visit, calling, Facebooking their support and their prayers. People stopping by my in-laws' house to drop by food and toys for the kids, because they ended up being there for 2 weeks. And when Becky drove the kids over from New Ulm, she just had packed the essentials. So they didn't have any of their own toys, and Grandma and Nanny and Papa had toys, but toys for a few days, not for 2 weeks. So people were extremely generous with their donations. One of Becky's friends from high school set up a GoFundMe account where that raised over $10,000, and kind strangers are donating hundreds of dollars to this. And so when I heard all of this goodwill thrust upon us, I immediately adopted what I now call the attitude of gratitude. Because if I were to become morose or angry or depressed, or get into a woe is me kind of situation, I would be slapping the face of everyone who stepped up to bat for us. I didn't feel that I had any right to complain when A, I was live, B, I had a good chance of recovering to some semblance of normalcy, and C, everyone had shown so much kindness to me that in my family that it would be disrespectful for me to be anything but grateful.
Yeah, I can't believe all of what you just shared. I mean, I probably should have prefaced this whole thing. If you have a weak stomach, you might want to fast forward a little bit. But yeah. I mean, some of your analogies and how you word it, I thank you for that. At the same time, I'm like, oh, that does not sound good. But it's so good that, I mean, it's not good, it's great. It's so great that you are on the other side of this and you survived this and were able to recover. And I know recovery has scars, but I often think that a lot of times when we go through something, especially when it's something hard, those are really moments where it redesigns our entire life. It's almost like it's a gift that we've been given. And I know people may think that's kind of weird to say, but often when you're able to take something uncomfortable and turn it into something else, it's really beautiful. And this idea of the attitude of gratitude, I mean, I'm sure before your surgeries, before, having all of this happen to you in your life, you probably lived in a very different mindset. Is that fair to say?
Well, I was still a very positive person. Being a father and a teacher, I am a role model, and I need to display the attitudes and actions that I want my charges to show themselves. But I think that this situation and everyone's response to it has really fortified in me the power of positivity and the power of gratitude, especially when you are in a low point.
Yeah, and I know right now with the world the way that it is, I mean, it's the entire globe. The entire globe is in a place where they're going through a lot of discomfort and a lot of change. I mean, when you're going through an uncomfortable period of time, it is change, right? Mm-hmm. And it is something that is painful a lot of times. And whether it's your physical being or your emotional being, spiritual being, I mean, there's lots of different ways to look at it. But I think right now it's really easy for people to get angry and blame or project onto other things that may have caused them to feel what it is they're feeling. that's not something I've heard you say. That's not something I've heard you say in all of what you just shared. It wasn't that you were angry about it. If anything, it was more accepting. It sounds like you accepted what it was and you looked for ways to make it into a positive. I think that's so key and so powerful, especially in the space that we're living in today as a world and the climate that we're in. Share with the audience a little bit about how you did that. Like, what was it that you did that allowed you to do that?
Certainly. And I do want to say, Catherine, just going back real quick to what you said about the whole world is going through this pandemic. We are all experiencing a collective origin story. When you think about it in comic book parlance, we're all going through something that is hard or challenging or sometimes painful. And we have basically two choices. I mean, I'm sure you can nitpick and, and have straws about which way to go. But basically, we can either be positive and become optimistic and determined to succeed, or negative and become angry, morose, pessimistic. And in my situation, I decided, obviously, the former. I decided to be positive. And what I did was I first started looking at all the positive things I have in my life. And obviously, the big ones come to mind, my faith, my family, my friends, my job, my home. But then I started looking at the little things. And I really found that when you pick out the little things in your life that you like, those are positives. Anything you like is a positive influence on you. And it's something to be grateful for. For example, at that time, it was March 2015, the show Daredevil had just been released on the Netflix. And as you could probably guess, I am a huge comic book geek. And my brother, who again had flown in from Michigan, he bought me an iPad to keep me entertained. And so I downloaded the Netflix icon, and I started watching that show, and I binge watched it over and over and over again. And I really appreciate it, especially the hallway scene. If anyone watching, if you ever seen Daredevil, you know what I'm talking about. That hallway scene is classic. And I started thinking about other things, like the way that the sunlight would not shine in my face as I was, experiencing, my hospital stay day to day. And I know that sounds weird, but for a number of weeks, I was immobile. I couldn't move on my own. And I was grateful that the sun, when it would travel through the sky, it would not shine directly into my face, because there's not much I could do there except for shield my eyes and complain. The hospital pizza was phenomenal. I couldn't believe it. And you think, hospital food, it's just a teeny step above airline food. But this hospital pizza was like deep dish. Oh, it was so good. I almost, I don't want to joke of it and say I want to go back in the hospital just for the pizza. But if I ever had to, I would look forward to it. And so it's those kinds of things I started picking out and saying, you know what? Yes, I'm in a bad situation, but it doesn't mean that I have to be in a bad mood. And so I started thinking of those positive things. And then I started thinking of all the people in my life and how I appreciated them and why I appreciated them. And I started sharing that with them and being specific, because, many people, they do good things, they don't think about it. But if you were to say, hey, I really appreciated how you held the door for that person, or I appreciated how you wished me happy birthday, or you got me out of that bad mood, people are more inclined to do things if you recognize it for them, especially if they're positive things. And, everyone wants a positive world. And if you influence people to be more positive, chances are they will be. And so I like to acknowledge the appreciated. And, and then the third step, the final step, I started reaching out and finding ways I could make someone else's day, or I could be someone else's hero, to use the comic book analogy. And there wasn't a lot I could do while I was in the hospital, other than like comment to people, or maybe jump on a GoFundMe if I saw something that someone else is going through. But when I was discharged, I started doing things like, for example, I occasionally would mow our neighbors' lawns. One neighbor goes on vacations a lot during the summer, and their lawn will get really long, so I'd mow it for them, so it looks like they were home. And our other neighbors just had twins, and as a dad of twins, I know that that's a lot of work, and so I mowed their lawns. I constantly pick up trash while I'm on my runs, or when I'm biking, and hold the door for people, and all those instances of kindness are fantastic because they're free. It costs $0 to be someone else's hero, to help someone out. And so I encourage people to do that, and that's what I wanted to do as well. And then that way other people can share the feeling of positivity that I had and move it forward.
Yeah, I love all of that, because it's a small rippling effect of kindness that will continue on, whether people realize it or not. Just that little bit can change someone's day. It could totally turn their whole entire day around. But I don't know the hallway scene. So what is the hallway scene? I'm sitting here questioning, what is this scene?
Okay, well, I don't want to give too much away because it is a work of genius. But in the second episode of Daredevil, Matt Murdock is trying to find this kid, and he goes into this building looking for this kid, and then there are the kidnappers in there, and the way he rescues this kid is done in such a cinematically beautiful way. I'll spoil it a little bit. It's done in one take, one continuous take. And so you might just have to watch it for yourself. I mean, especially if you are a comic book or a movie fan, it's something to behold. And I just remember sitting or laying down in my hospital bed watching this over and over again, because it was just seamless, perfect. It fit the character, spot on, and just a lot of fun to binge watch. And again, something that I really appreciated, and it was a positive influence that I could fall on when I was feeling bad about having to be woken up at 3 a.m. to take meds, or having to go on an excruciating walk, to only go 10 feet.
Well, it sounds like it was a defining moment, but you still left me with some mystery. So I guess I have no choice but to check it out.
Yes.
But no, I love all of what your message is. And I think, those little moments are so important, whether it's acknowledging the little things with your family or people in your life, but then also doing the small favors for other people, paying the kindness forward. Additionally to paying kindness forward, I mean, as you say, this is a global collective. And I think now more than ever, that kindness needs to be paid forward to everyone. Mm-hmm. And people need to be reminded of that, just to walk in that space of gentleness and having gratitude for one another, but also just, for everything that you have, really. I mean, I did a podcast earlier around someone who was talking about just being in a space of a hospital bed and having blindness in one eye, but, not being able to move their body or be able to verbally communicate. And it is powerful. It is powerful because you don't have the ability to do for yourself. And the mere fact that you can do for yourself is a blessing. The mere fact that you can go outside or, look out a window or do these different things is such an incredible blessing, and people may take that for granted. So just having the gratitude in the space around that, I think, is so important. Is there any other recommendations that you have for someone who may be struggling during this point in time as a collective globally around the world? I'm sure there's people in our audience, as we hear that mental illness is kicking up and things like that. Like, what would you suggest?
I think just going back to that, the attitude of gratitude, being, counting all your blessings, I guess you could say, looking for all the positive things that you like. It could be that, we runners, we love our running shoes because they're very, a lot of times they're very comfortable. That's something positive. When you come in from a hot, come in from the outside and it's super hot outside, super hot and humid like it is usually here in Minnesota, and you take a nice cold drink of water. That's something to be grateful for. That's something to be positive about. Even taking a shower. Many people take showers or baths and don't think much of it. There are places still in the world where people can't take showers with clean water every day or even every week. And so being appreciative of those things that are seemingly insignificant can really help us become centered and stay grounded and stay positive, even though there are negative things going on. I'm not saying I'm Pollyanna by any means, but at the same time, that doesn't mean we have to be a Debbie Downer either, and become morose. Look for those positive things, and that, I think that will ground you in positivity. And then, thank people. There are numerous studies that show the positive effects of gratitude, of expressing gratitude to others, especially. And so by doing that, you're not only helping those other people feel better, but you're helping yourself feel better as well. And then finally, doing those acts of kindness. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to cost anything, or maybe cost a few dollars, but you don't know whose day you could positively impact by doing that. For example, when you go to the store, we know that retail workers are going through an enormously hard time right now because of all the mandates and because of people who, depending on how they feel about having to wear a mask inside, are expressing their displeasure to the poor cashier, working at Target or working at Walmart. Being kind to those people can honestly, turn their day around. And I don't want to become hyperbolic and say it would save their lives, but it might save their day. It might make them feel better. It might give them something to appreciate.
Yeah.
And so I just ask people to take those steps to make the world a little better place.
Yeah, and I think those are all great suggestions. And I know there's studies out there that have shown just living with gratitude, it does increase your mind, your mental state, but also that giving back also can do the same thing. Just giving back to your communities, even if it's in small ways, checking in on your neighbor. One of the things that I do, and I don't share this, but I guess I am now, is I actually put cards together and I write small letters to people in the hospitals, and I do it especially for the veterans, and I send it to the veterans hospitals, and I've had veterans literally cry when they have found out I've done that, because they understand the weight that goes into that and how much it's appreciated. So
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, I don't even understand myself how much it's appreciated, but I know for myself, if I were in that hospital bed, I would myself would want somebody to say thank you, for your service or whatever, just to show that gratitude and appreciation.
Yeah.
So that's just my little thing that I do.
Okay. No, I have to say, just to piggyback on that quickly, there is a 2006 study that shows that expressing and, feeling gratitude has helped Vietnam veterans stave off the effects of PTSD. And so,
Interesting.
to have that much power, of positivity to, to help them in that, help them mentally is something we shouldn't overlook ever.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much because I did not know about that study. So that actually makes me feel good because I've been doing that for years and years. And like I said, I haven't really expressed that to anybody until recently. And I guess now the whole world knows.
Yeah. Well, I'm very proud of you for doing that.
Well, I guess I just do it out of the kindness of my heart, but it doesn't cost anything, right? It's just,
Exactly.
I mean, okay, it costs, the amount of the stamp to put on the envelope,
Mhm.
but if I have greeting cards laying around, I'll put them in a pile and I'll just, stack them up. And when I'm sitting around, spending time doing nothing, that's what I'll do is I'll just scribble those notes. And then before I know it, I have a stack and I just send them out. But I love all of your message around the attitude of gratitude. And Chris, it's so awesome that you're healthy and everything is great, as far as your body and all of that you've been through. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I can't even imagine having a flesh-eating disease kind of thing. Like that's just it's just hard to wrap my head around that because it's so big. And I know we hear of it, but to be personally connected to somebody who's experienced it, that is a lot. So I just shared my gratitude for you being here and sharing your story with us, as difficult as it is to hear that beginning part of it. I mean, you have some really great tools that I think can help our audience as they navigate these waters moving forward collectively. And I have a final question for you. So I've asked all of my guest speakers, if I were to pick up your Earth Angel feather off the ground and read your message to the world, what would it say? What would it be?
It might be double-sided. Because I have, two messages I love to share with people. First of all, it is, be kind, be thankful for what you have, be kind, be thankful for others and share that with them, and extend that kindness outwardly in actions. On the other side of that feather, I would have inscribed, pass on perfection and go for greatness. I think in our world, we are inundated with images of perfection, like it's something that can be attainable for long periods of time. And it really hinders people and actually stifles their creativity and their productivity. And instead, if we go for consistency and reach for greatness, not only can we become great, but we might attain those momentary glimpses of perfection. But by releasing our mental bonds of the struggle to become perfect, we can attain greatness, and that could be more fulfilling and more, I guess, more heroic for others and more inspirational for others to follow.
That is amazing. You're the first one to say your feather is double-sided. So I really love that. That's great. So if our audience would like to connect with you, they can reach you at the World Wide Web, chrisdtgordon.com. And it's D like David, T like Thomas, Gordon.com. Yes. I don't know if that's actually your name, but
it actually is. I have two
oh my goodness, that was totally a guess.
Actually, Daniel Thomas. So you got half.
Oh, there
right,
you go.
Yeah, two middle names, Daniel Thomas. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. So anyway, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm glad that we didn't have any crazy thunder, lightning or anything like that. And we could get through this. So
Yes, yeah.
appreciate
Well, I
that.
could hear it from my end. I'm glad it wasn't too intrusive. But thank you so much for your time, Catherine. I greatly appreciate being on here and talking with you and sharing my story with your audience.
Absolutely. And I know just from my own standpoint, your story is so powerful. And I know so many people can really learn and get something from your story. So, so much gratitude for sharing it and being very transparent with it. So appreciation is abundant on this end. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks. And that's all we have time for today. This is Catherine Daniels from Retreat to Peace, reminding you to live your authentic life in peace. And as always, retreat to peace, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, and one more thing before we go. I wanted to share with my audience that in the coming weeks, I will be doing some interviews that are very special in regards to mental health. I have several people that I've interviewed from around the world that come to us with some very one more thing before we go on how they to share with my audience that in the coming weeks through I will be doing some interviews that are very special. I know in a time where the world is experiencing a lot of darkness. I have several people that I've interviewed from around the world elections that come to us with some very special stories that have changed in their world on how they turn coming into the holidays, their life around. This is a time that becomes a mental health crisis, a little bit more. I know in a time where the world is experiencing for some people, a lot of darkness with a lot global shutdowns, feelings that are uncomfortable. So in the coming weeks, I'll be sharing some more interviews coming into the holidays. People that have gone through that becomes these kinds of situations, a little bit everyday people like family intensive, and just for some how people that were able to turn a lot of inside out and that are uncomfortable. So please join us. I will also have another big announcement next week. People that have gone forward to sharing that with my audience. These kinds of situations, everyday people like wonderful. Blessed and day, just to how always live your authentic turn things inside out and provide some hope to peace. So please join us. I will also have another big announcement next week, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with my audience. Have a wonderful, blessed day, and as always, live your authentic life with peace and retreat to peace. I will see you next time.